LGBT TikToker has just come out to her family and gets emotional.
My name is Diddy. And I'm non-binary. My pronouns are she, they. And I'm queer. And this is me officially coming out. Oh my God. This feels really good. Hi. My name is Diddy. I am non-binary. My pronouns are she, they.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
There's a lot to unpack there. Big level of delusion. Yeah, I mean, again, mental health is a big problem around the world right now. We are having a big epidemic in the country, in all countries. Let me rephrase that. In the West is better said. This is insane and absolutely unhinged. Like genuinely, you could just swap out, remove the caption, and then just put this on on a porn website, and then remove it, make it a black screen, and just literally leave this for somebody to see as like ASMR porn. And that's exactly what this could be. I literally thought that there was some sort of something else to this besides just the pronouns and the excitement. That's wow. Insane.
It is. It's just, what's funny is that, so for the audio listeners, it does say, there's kind of a caption that says, update, my pronouns are now they, them, still queer, still pan, still poly. So, coming out as pansexual, I could kind of get on board with that more in terms of, celebrating it, maybe it being an emotional process. But the whole thing of coming out as something that doesn't even exist, of being non-binary and being this emotional, it flabbergasts me. On one hand, I'm happy that she's happy and that she's obviously having such a euphoric moment, but there's clearly something else underlying here, and yeah, it's kind of like no words. It goes back to like how, people of my generation and older, and I had a good experience coming out, but so many of them had such grueling experiences coming out. And now you have this just making a complete mockery of them coming out as something that is not a real thing and acting like, I don't even know.
Yeah, it's almost like she won a prize. It's like the way that this person is speaking. It's almost like she won a prize.
It sounds like she just found out that some terminal diagnosis is like gone and she's gonna live.
She just found out that she no longer has cancer. This is exactly what happened. Is that there's so many, you can just remove the caption, and there could be so many reasons for this video that are not this psychotic reason to be so excited. But,
and the thing about most of these is that if you told someone this is a parody, then they all make so much more sense. But unfortunately, they're not. Next up, woman thinks eating meat is racist and misogynistic.
Our whiteness is part of the problem of meat eating. The assumption that the best protein comes from corpses is a racist belief. How do you know the animal would have picked you to feed off their corpse? 21st century animal eating requires our complicity in a new colonialism. These events especially affect girls and young women. Your hamburger comes with a dose of misogyny. Popular culture is flooded with references to sexy cows, sexy pigs, sexy chickens, sexy fishes. Meat eating is also one of the ways gender-based structures of oppression are perpetuated. Masculinity, a construct of the gender binary facing constant destabilization, feels always under threat, and eating animals is its protection racket. White supremacists weaponized it, eating meat, eggs, and dairy, and the baiting of liberal men as so-called soy boys are all part of the neo-Nazi messaging.
Wow. I mean, I have an interesting take on this one because I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat meat to begin with. And there's so many reasons why I became a vegetarian, and one of them was not because it upholds white
Right.
supremacy. It goes against white supremacy,
And
I should say. That's
misogyny.
not one of the reasons why I did it. I did it because right, like, I did it because it was better for my body. Immediately when I did it, I lost 30, 40 pounds. I had, like, a lot of extra weight that I struggled with for a really long
Mm-hmm.
time, and I'm still trying to keep off. It's just kind of part of my genetics, but immediately when I stopped eating meat, I lost a lot of weight, and my body kind of, like, went back to what I used to be when I was a little bit, like, more of
Mm-hmm.
a kid, more of a teenager. And so again, I did it because of health reasons, and I also did it because I love animals. I don't know if you could see it. I have a cow
Mm-hmm.
tattoo on me because I love cows a lot. Like, they're one of my favorite animals. I like sharks and
Mm-hmm.
I like cows.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't want to eat them. But to tell people that one of the reasons why we should go vegetarian and stop eating meat is because you're racist if you eat meat, is, again, I say this to all people, is part of the reason why people hate vegetarians and vegans, because they think that all we talk about is that, and that we are like this. Like, this is ridiculous. This is why people don't like us, because they think
Um,
that we're like
I
this.
I would be surprised if anyone thinks you're like this. I've never seen something like this before. But I don't think when I see something like this, it's not even possible to debunk what she's saying because she has so many isms and
Mm-hmm.
different oppressive words thrown in there that she immediately loses you. You know, she has neo-Nazism in there, white supremacy, misogyny. None of it none of it makes sense, incoherent. And the fact that this woman sat in a room somewhere and actually wrote this, typed it out with her own two fingers, and then I don't even know what this is. Like, where is she? Where she's at some podium, just reciting this. Like, what is? I want to know the context behind this. Like, what is she fighting for? And something she said at the beginning was, "How do you know the animal would want you to be eating off its bones and not someone else? Like, oh, how do you know they'd want a white person?" Like, and like, sorry to break it to you, babe, but animals would rather no one be eating them. That's the harsh reality. You're not going to say to them, "Well, we're going to slaughter you. Would you prefer a white person or a black person to eat you?" I don't think they're really going to care. I think they're just going to try and stop you from slaughtering them.
Right, exactly. And it doesn't, because it doesn't really, it's like, again, it's ridiculous and ludicrous to bring this into, like, a race-based conversation, because it's really not. It's like, it's not a race-based conversation. It's as simple as, like, are you one of those people that believes in animal rights, and do you like animals and whatever? Not like, do you uphold racism, and how do you feel on racist
Hmm.
tropes and whatever? It's like,
Yeah, and it's the same.
when did we start
Well,
mixing these
everything's about race,
things?
Daniel. Surely you should know that by now. And
Yeah,
it's the
apparently.
same with the fact that with the
Apparently.
fat activist movement, the fat positivity movement, they always say that fat phobia is because of whiteness, and whiteness sets the standard, which is
Mhm.
totally ridiculous. And what sets the standard is being healthy. And to be healthy, you have to not be obese. It doesn't matter if you're white or black. So moving on, this
Right,
pregnant mother is
exactly.
eager to promote the joys of polyamory.
So embarrassing for an adult to do on a platform primarily for children.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't, first of all, to begin with, I think it's cringy when grown ass adults go on TikTok and dance. I think it's weird. They leave that for the kids. And I'm saying that as a 21-year-old, I wouldn't do that either. Leave that for the children, for the teenagers. Not for me. Polyamory is not for me. Like, the idea of, I call it the roommate system that a lot of gay people have,
Mm.
where it's like, at some point in the relationship, if not from the very beginning, which a lot of people are doing now, they're
Hmm.
choosing to like open up the relationship from the very beginning. For
Mm.
me, that's not a
Yeah.
thing. Like when you're in a relationship, you're in a relationship with that one person, and like that's it. Like there's, like that's it's just weird to me. Like if you're going to be out here having sex with other people, dating other people, and you're in a relationship, or you have a boyfriend or a husband, you just have a roommate. That's just a roommate. That's the roommate that you live with, that you sleep with. You guys sleep in the same bed because it's cheaper to have two bedrooms, and you guys are roommates, and that's it. That's what that is, and that's how I see that. That's just me though, but I call it the
Uh-huh.
roommate system that most of them have. And same thing goes for a woman. This person is, from what I can see from the haircut, which is the only way to tell, the haircut and the clothes, that they're non-binary or something. Um,
Who knows? Probably.
right. But this female, and I can tell because there's a pregnancy that you could see. This person, bless their heart, because that's not gonna last very long, and the baby daddies are gonna keep a coming.
Fair enough. I think this is where we might disagree a bit. I think, well, on the point of dancing on TikTok, it's free expression. I think if adults want to do that, and if some people think they're making a fool of themselves, then so be it. And you're allowed to think that for sure. You might want to avoid those people, and I appreciate that. I think when it comes to polyamory, so I'm divided on this because I recognize that the human condition is so differentiated and vast, and everything that we have about us is sort of a normal distribution. You have people that sit on the average like you're straight, you have people that sit on the outside like you're gay, and I would only assume that being monogamous is sort of a similar spectrum. I think there might be some people that the majority of people, it actually works for better, and I think there are probably people out there who would have a really fulfilling life this way. However, I think the problem is that now polyamory and that kind of stuff is being seen as, more sophisticated, and you're breaking free of the heteronormative shackles that society's putting on you and having to just sleep with one person for the rest of your life. So we have some people who are just kind of convincing themselves that this is what they need to do to be progressive and to be woke and to be noticed and have attention. And one of the first captions it said in that was, at first, like, you may feel really insecure when your partner is sleeping with someone else, but it just makes you stronger. And to me, that's sort of just like you gaslighting yourself into saying, well, this is progressive and it actually makes me feel really shit, but I'm just going to go with it because I want to be seen this way. So it comes across really disingenuous. But I do think that, if there wasn't a social media pressure and if it wasn't politicized, that there probably are some people who actually would live a fulfilling life this way, but it's kind of hard to actually tell them apart.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I mean, I am very traditional in that sense. I think that, like, you have a partner and you're with your partner, and that's just kind of the way that it is. I don't subscribe to the idea that, like, there is a spectrum in gender. I don't really subscribe to the idea that there's much of a spectrum in sexuality. I kind of just feel like we have like gay, straight. The only sexuality that I used to be like, that's kind of ridiculous. It's basically just being bisexual, that like I thought of for a long time was pansexuality, because I was like, that's just being bisexual. But it's like, I feel like there has to be a very big differentiation between people who would want to be with, let's say, people who are bisexual, who would be with both biological male and female, versus somebody who would be with both biological male and female and trans male and female, which is what
Mm-hmm.
I think, from my understanding, is what pansexuality is. So I
Yeah.
understand the existence for that. Um, but I'm not sure that it goes beyond too much of a spectrum. And that same thing goes for something like, you know, marriage or relationship, or I don't know that there is much of a spectrum. Yes, I mean, everybody has their own way of handling their marriage. Some people know that the person they're in a relationship with is cheating, and they just choose to deal with it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's much, you know, duality in that. I feel like it's pretty black and white for me.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I have seen scientists quote that, sexuality is more of a spectrum than, sex and gender. So I think I do agree with that in the sense, there might be a woman who enjoys sleeping with both people, but she's far more interested in the romantic, like being with someone romantically who's male or female.
Mm-hmm.
Or someone who just kind of occasionally likes a bit of this, but most of the time they're not really that into it. I don't know, who knows. But anyway, next up, woke mother is triggered by a straight white family in a children's book.
Happy Friday, but can I ask you a serious question? How is it 2023 and this, I'll show you in a minute, is what we are saying the majority of families look like? This is the majority families. Don't get me wrong, there are families like that. And those families have plenty of things dedicated to them, movies and books and holidays and all the things. Why, like, if we're really getting serious about what people think teachers are doing in the classroom, why is that on a book? Why is that a picture representing families? I'm just asking.
I
mean, first off, she doesn't look like any lesbian, so she is a straight white woman. It's representing
Yeah,
her.
I mean, I don't really understand what this fascination is with honing in on people's color again. Like, I don't really know what it is about like going for people's race as like a way to explain anything or have a point on anything. Like, I don't know why we're going backwards on that. Like, why we've deemed it accessible and okay for one certain race to be getting the brunt of whatever this is. I don't know. I don't understand it. I think it's like another example of the fact that our culture has a big problem with mental illness, because this woman has literally, and look, notice the thing on her neck, the rainbow collar. This woman has been indoctrinated to hate herself, and
Yeah.
it's so sad. It is sad. It's
It's a good
sad.
point. And it's not only that they're white, it's that they're straight. So, and she's saying, why is this in
Mhm.
schools? So, what do you expect? That every book that kids read has two dads or two moms or a trans dad? Like,
Yeah, we're just supposed to have like, instead of having like clip art or pictures and like little binder clips that they use for children, like they're just gonna have to have like leaflets where they can like flip it to see like all
mhm,
separate kinds of variations, so that they can feel good about themselves after seeing the 75th variation of family with a Asian, Indian,
who's
white
trans?
child, and I don't know whatever other variation you can put into it.
Mm. And I don't know about putting the white child in there, like you said. I mean, maybe if they're on puberty blockers, then it would be okay.
Yes,
Um, but I,
intersectionality.
I also think it's natural, though, for all of us to kind of gravitate towards things we know. So if you're raised by a white family and you're white, then if you identify more with white people in a book, then that's fine, because that's like humans are like that. We're kind of tribalistic. And I remember, this is just a kind of tangent, but the band Little Mix, who are no longer together. There's a mixed race girl, Leanne, in that, and she did a documentary about race, and she was saying that there were three kind of young white girls who were talking to the other three girls, saying, "Oh, I look up to you, and like you're my favorite," and that, and she kind of saw it as like a racist thing, but I just think that they just didn't identify with her as much because she didn't look like them, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have an opinion on that kind of stuff. I feel like you can identify with, and that's kind of what I was saying previously about little girls. Like, little girls don't really care about identifying with anything like that. They don't really care. Like, yes, it's nice and it's important for children to have representation in some form in their life. That's the family's job usually, to
Mhm.
keep them in touch with their culture. But for the most part, like, you know, I like Beyonce and I really appreciate her music, and I really appreciate like the southernness about her music and the fact that she incorporates southern culture into her music a lot. Like, at the end of the day, I was born in Cuba, but I'm from Florida. I was raised in the South. Like, so I thankfully I was raised in Miami, so I got a big brunt of like, you know, the southern, like hillbilly redneck culture, like what you would call it, and a big Hispanic flair because of the fact that I do live in Miami and it's a big melting pot. But at the end of the day, like, I'm from Florida, I'm from like a southern state, so I like that music, and I like the styling of the instrumentals and the way that she incorporates southern music into like a southern style into her music. But I like her music and I identify with her music because there's certain things of it that I can relate to. The southernness, the
Because you're
Lemonade is
gay.
one of my favorite albums. Right, that too. Something like Lemonade, because it has like the southern twang and Texas and Louisiana, and I love that vibe. It's southern and I like it. I don't have to be black to enjoy it. I don't have to come from like a predominantly black neighborhood in Louisiana where, I don't know, maybe she could have filmed a music video or whatever the case may be, but I identify with her music without really seeing the color aspect of it. So
Mm.
I feel like you can identify with anybody if you really wanted to, but I feel like in a culture that has made it to where you have to hone in a lot on your gender, sexuality, race, and you have to always talk about it. Maybe for a lot of people it becomes
Yeah.
annoying, you know?
Hmm. Well, nice little speech about Beyonce there. I don't know. I think maybe you're into her so much it's cultural appropriation. But we're on to our last woke TikTok. And this trans identifying person has a lot to say about biological sex.
There's no such thing as biological men. That's not a real thing. That is a transphobic dog whistle. What it's doing is it's trying to justify transphobia using science when, first of all, man is a term associated with gender and not with sex. But even if we were talking about males, sex is also a spectrum.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, again, we were kind of just touching on this just a moment ago in a separate manner, but I don't believe that gender is on a spectrum. And I also don't believe that sexuality is on much of a spectrum, diverting from what the sexualities that I just discussed. Like, I don't think that there's a spectrum relating to that. I think that
Mm.
it's just not. Like, I don't see it. I really don't see it. I don't see it because when you have children and you're pregnant, you can simply ask for a blood test at a few weeks old, like a few weeks pregnant, and find out what the gender of your baby is. So
The sex we're talking about here. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, whatever, gender, sex, again, that's another thing that I don't really see much differentiation from, but I
Yeah.
guess yes, we're talking about biological sex. It's male and female. That's about it. Again, I don't see any differentiation between that, and I'm not one of those people that believes in. I just don't believe in the whole like they them in between. I just don't, and that's not something that I don't think I'll really ever understand. Doesn't mean I'm going to
Mhm.
discriminate against people who happen to be non-binary, but I just don't see it. I don't see it. I
Mhm.
think it's like ridiculous. Yeah, I feel like that's the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, like it's a belief system, and I believe the belief system exists. And if someone believes it about themselves and it gives them happiness and joy, and they don't enforce it upon others, go for it. I think that's great. I mean, I question why it gives you that much joy, just having another pronoun. But I think, the whole biological sex isn't real, biological sex is spectrum. That is just the most damaging part of this whole movement because we go from trans women are women, we go from there are a million genders and genders socially constructed. And then once you start accepting all those things and someone can be neither genders, then you have to get on board with this biological sex is a spectrum. And any scientist, any credible scientist can refute that and say sex is binary. But again, it's crept into institutions. And when you study gender studies, you have like Anne Foster Sterling talking about how there's 5 different sexes. And, they make comparisons like because in clownfish, they have the ability to change their sex from male to female if the female of the school of fish dies. And they point to that and say, because that exists, biological sex isn't real, but humans are sexually dimorphic and that, it's you can't refute it. And it's just ridiculous how many people actually believe something. It's just like a flat earther. And that's why when you start believing a little white lie out of politeness and to be courteous, it opens its doors to all sorts of lies. And that's the issue. I mean, I have no problem calling a trans woman she, because sometimes a word can mean multiple things, right? You know, we have words in the English language that are spelled the same, that actually mean different things. So I think as long as we know that she can sort of apply to a woman or a trans woman, I'm fine with that. But beyond that, beyond she, we need to actually talk about the distinction. And it's the same with all of this, you know, it just gets crazier and crazier. Sex is real.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just real, it's like undeniable.